This is my third try at recording this because the dogs have been barking at a mythological beast. Most of you know I'm off hiking in Nepal this month, so I have pre-recorded our lives. I want to bust some myths. You know, in February I started working at a gym, and you know, there's still some of those stubborn myths sort of permeating the atmosphere, and I thought, you know, I want to get this off my chest, so off it comes. And the first myth I want to bust is that there is only one way of cueing a exercise, okay? Now, I do get we've all got our favorite ways, but maybe the best way for me to describe this is to tell you a story. So I've started working at this gym, and I'm working someone else's program for the first time in my life. I show up, I do what I'm told, and I leave. Not good at doing what I'm told, but my boss Taylor is quite happy for me to go rogue occasionally. Now, Taylor and I coach very different breath patterns for lifting heavy. And she pulled me aside fairly early in my journey at Precision, asking for an explanation. She wanted to resolve what seemed like a contradiction in what we were doing. So she coaches a breath hold, a Valsalva. Okay, I coach exhale, or a forced exhale, or even just breathing out. Now, neither are wrong. It's actually all about our priorities. So the Valsalva breath only holds pressure and core stability. So the idea of the Valsalva is to increase intra-abdominal pressure, and the theory is that that stabilizes your trunk. Okay, but that only works if the core of the person holding their breath is functional. Okay, now I'm just training women. 80% of women will experience core dysfunction in their lifetime: stress, incontinence, prolapse, chronic back pain. So it's not a safe assumption for me that their core is functional. I have to assume it's not. Okay. Furthermore, the pelvic floor is a expiratory muscle group, which means it lifts when you breathe out naturally. Holding the breath in an inspiratory pattern, which is holding it, breathe in and hold, it puts extra stress. It's counterintuitive for the pelvic muscles. They don't naturally want to create a vacuum and lift, and it also creates extra downward stress. So while that's not in and of itself necessarily wrong, what it does do when we're heavy lifting is put it under excessive strain, and it will become a problem if her pelvic floor muscles cannot meet the challenge. Now, as I said, 80% of women have core dysfunction. Probably 70% of the women I train have disclosed core dysfunction, whether it's scars or prolapse or whatever. So building pressure in a position that makes the pelvic floor less able to do its job is not smart coaching for me and my clients. Okay. The Valsalva breath also increases blood pressure. So heart disease and blood pressure dysfunctions are an issue for women. It's the number one or the number two cause of death for women. A lot of my female clients are grandmas. Even if they don't have high blood pressure or cardio disease, it makes sense for me to coach them in a way that doesn't put extra pressure on their blood pressures. So, you know, managing the intra-abdominal pressure is my priority. Safe coaching is my priority. Empowered coaching, because I want them to lift heavy, but I want them to do it in a way that means we're not going to develop a prolapse or, you know, a hernia or bust a blood vessel anywhere. Okay. So Taylor and I have different populations and different priorities. She's training men and women, and they're just training lifting as heavy as possible. Okay. I'm training just women. Most of these women have a problem, or they're postmenopausal, in which case I know they have less estrogen in their bodies, which makes them more vulnerable to things like heart disease and pelvic floor dysfunctions. So I want them to lift as healthily as they can, but in a way that doesn't contribute to their dysfunctions, in a way that builds them back up. So I already know there's the, mythical hole in their bucket. If their bucket is their core, there's already holes in their buckets. I don't want to be building intra-abdominal pressure only to have their organs bust through that hole, okay? I don't know if that analogy made things better. So before you troll someone on social media or judge them saying they're cueing wrong, or even just a trainer in your gym, consider your populations, your products, and your priorities are probably different. And your way may not be the best way for all people, okay? You may need to adapt your training, whether you're training men or women or people with a disability or whatever. Good technique, this is a case in point. If you're training someone with cerebral palsy, their squat technique is going to vastly differ from an able-bodied person and from another person with cerebral palsy, depending on the degree of disability they live with. So, let's get a bit more flexible with our thinking, and let's be a bit more open-minded with right, wrong, and it's okay to say and what it's not okay to say. And let's be clear on what we're trying to achieve with our clients too.